In this clip I'm going to tie a parachute spider pattern. It's a pattern I've visited before in my previous book of essential fly tying techniques, and it's a particularly good dry fly when you're trying to drum fish up. They aren't re-rising, maybe the water's a bit high. It can be too much of a fly, too big a fly, and you start getting refusals on it, but for the time, early season when it works tremendously well. Just for a bit of entertainment, we're going to build a bicolor wing on this one. It's a technique that can be very useful if you want to try to add a little bit of additional color, maybe to make the parachute more visible, maybe to imitate a particular insect. So we're going to use white poly yarn as the first section of the post. Make sure it's where I want it on the hook. Like that. And then we're going to tie in a darker front shade to the wing. It looks really cool, and of course you can make it a fluorescent color if you want to make the visibility a bit better. So we're going to take a small amount, in this case of black poly yarn. I'm actually going to tie quite a dark version of this fly. Loop the yarn around the hook in the same way in front of the white piece. Take the thread around once more and tie in. And then you've got a double twin tone wing, which really adds a certain something to the way the fly looks. It's not technically a guide fly, added complexity, but it's fun to do. And now, with that double wing in place, we're going to do what we normally do. The thread's separated a bit. There we go. Going to bind the wing down nice and firmly. With that bicolor ring in place, we're going to just start taking the thread now up the post. Touching turns, pull tight, touching turns, pull tight, and back down again. With this bicolor wing, just need to give it a tug every so often, make sure it doesn't twist around itself, spoil the effect. And we're going to take the thread to the front of that wing and we're going to tie in 2 hackles for this pattern. Again, colours are variable, but we're going to tie in 2 hackles, 1 cock hackle, which is black, dark brown black, and 1 coq de lion hackle. Match up the bare stalks and tie them in as we have done before, just 2 hackles instead of 1, and tie them into the post, wrapping up the post in touching turns. Now here's a nice little trick. Because we're using 2 hackles, we're going to bend that coq de lion hackle out the way and make 2 wraps of thread above that coq de lion hackle and bring the thread down to the bottom. That makes the coq de lion stand out at a slight angle, and it makes it a lot easier to wrap later on in the process. Then we're going to take the thread down the hook shank, catching in this tag into those hackles. Again, no scissors, no wasted time. So we get to almost the bend of the hook and we're going to tie in some coq de lion tails. Take some coq de lion fibres, can be cock hackle fibres, can be microfibrils. A few too many there. I like to tie the tails in with a pinch and loop, 2 wraps, a little bit short, and then just pull them out to get the length that I want. Tie them down tight. And then we're going to tie in a rib. You can use wire, you can use mylar. I'm actually going to use some gold mylar, or this is actually gold and silver mylar. And it's an interesting quirk to this stuff. If you tie it in with the gold on the inside of the wraps, when you wind it, the gold will be on the outside, so it works in reverse. Tie in the mylar for the rib, and then we're going to tie in some pheasant tail for the body. These are pheasant tail fibres. Just going to trim the ends so that they're even, and I like to tie them in all the way up the hook shank like that, so I've got a nice smooth base for the abdomen of the fly. Almost at the post, we're just going to trim out those tail fibers, the rest of those tail fibers that are overhanging a bit. There we go. And we're about ready to wind the abdomen. So first we're going to wrap the pheasant tail in slightly overwrapping turns to just behind the base of the post and tie them in firmly. Trim off the excess. Here's that gold silver mylar. Wind it the opposite direction through the pheasant tail and tie that down behind the post as well. Trim off the extra ribbing, and we're going to build a thorax of some, in this case, dark superfine dubbing. So I'm going to dub a small amount of superfine dry fly dubbing onto the thread, and we're going to build ourselves a nice neat thorax and head on this fly. A couple of wraps behind the wing post, nice tight wraps up to the eye of the hook and back. Got a little bit too much there. And then one wrap of thread around the post. We're going to start to wind the hackle. To wind the hackles, I've just moved the camera a little bit further away for this. We're going to wind the cock hackle first. With hackle pliers, you're going to make 2 wraps above that coq de leon, go underneath it in 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps. This is a very bushy fly, this. Trap it in with 1 wrap of thread and trim it off. Then we're going to wind the coq de leon, which is going to be a lot easier to wrap because remember we stuck it out slightly sideways. This idea is not to form a dense hackle, it's to form a few legs. So 2 or 3 wraps is enough. Take the thread underneath that hackle, around the post again, trim it off. Our standard by now super glue whip finish on these parachutes. Careful not to get glue on those nice long wiggly legs of coq de leon. 2 wraps around the base of the post. Support the hook and pull tight while not break the thread. Beauty of that super glue thing, it doesn't matter if you do break the thread. Put the fly back up straight in the vise, and now all that's left to do is trim out any fibres that we caught with a whip finish. And I did really well with that one, I only caught a couple. Trim our lovely bicolour wing post. And they have dark parachute spider pattern. If I turn it up this way, you might be able to see that it's got a smaller hackle in the middle, and there's nice long coq de leon legs, just adding movement and life to it. Very mobile. Dark parachute spider pattern, As with almost every other fly in this book, you can tie a variety of different colours. It can be tremendously effective in its cork trade on everything from English chalk streams to flooding freestone streams. Great fly for presentation, particularly for beginners. Lands like thistledown. Draws up fish from quite deep water. Well worth having in your box.